No prince could win her heart until a human janitor solved the impossible test. The twin suns of Aurelian were setting, casting a golden light across the crystal towers of the royal palace. The air shimmered with heat and pride and failure. Inside the Hall of Trials, Princess Naira Selen stood tall and silent as another candidate walked away in shame. He was the 79th noble prince to fail her test. His jeweled cape dragged on the polished floor as he left, head bowed. The heavy doors closed behind him with a deep echo that felt final, almost funereal. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the faint hum of the palace crystals filled the air. Naira exhaled softly, her silver eyes reflecting the sunset. Another one, she murmured. All brilliance and no imagination. Behind her, Advisor Cor Velis adjusted his long robe, his face carved with lines of disappointment. Your Highness, the celestial alignment approaches in 6 cycles. The law is clear. You must choose a consort before then, or the elders will choose for you. I know the law, Naira said. Her tone was calm, but her fingers tightened on the edge of the console before her. The law requires a partner who can face the unknown. I've seen 79 princes, and not one could look beyond a formula. Cor hesitated, lowering his head. Perhaps your challenge is too difficult, my princess. A puzzle no mind can solve is no test at all. Naira turned toward him, her long braids swinging with the motion. Then it is a test for someone who thinks differently. As she spoke, the side door of the hall slid open with a faint hiss. A young man in gray overalls stepped inside, pushing a cleaning cart. His head was down, earbuds in, humming a quiet tune. When he noticed the princess and her advisor, he froze. Apologies, Your Highness, he stammered, pulling the earbuds out. I was told this hall was empty. Cor's voice rose in sharp disapproval. How dare you enter the royal chamber unannounced? But Naira raised her hand. Wait, she said quietly. Her eyes studied him with curiosity. He looked human, one of the recent arrivals from Earth. She had seen only a few before. You're from the exchange program? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Jace Rourke. Maintenance Unit 3, he replied, bowing awkwardly. Just cleaning duty. Sorry again. What did you do before coming here? Jace blinked, surprised she cared to ask. I was studying physics back home. Didn't finish. Lab accident, lost my scholarship. This job paid well, so here I am. Cor scoffed. A physics dropout turned janitor. Hardly palace material. But Naira smiled slightly. Physics, you say? Jace rubbed the back of his neck, nervous. Sort of. More like I was trying to study it. Her gaze turned distant, thoughtful. Then she said the words that made Cor's jaw drop. You will take my test. Jace blinked. Sorry, what? Cor nearly choked. Your Highness, he is a human laborer. The test is for royal candidates only. Naira's voice stayed calm. The law says the one who passes the test may stand as consort. It does not say what planet he must come from. Jace stared at her. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I just cleaned the floors. I'm not. Do you wish to return to Earth immediately? She interrupted. He frowned. Well, no. Then you will take my test, she said simply. Cor's protest echoed across the chamber, but Naira ignored him. She gestured toward a large holographic table. It flared to life, displaying a vast image of swirling darkness, a storm of stars and energy. This, she said, is the Maw, our greatest mystery. Ships that enter it never emerge where they expect. Sometimes they vanish entirely. For centuries, our best minds have failed to understand it. Jace stared at the spinning display. You want me to solve that? You have one day, Naira said. That's impossible. Then you will fail like the rest, she replied softly. But I believe you might see what others do not. For a long moment, they looked at each other, the human janitor and the alien princess. Then Jace sighed, placed his cleaning tools aside, and stepped closer to the glowing map. All right, he muttered, half to himself. Let's see what kind of mess this really is. Naira's eyes brightened, just a little. For the first time in months, there was a flicker of genuine interest, maybe even hope. As Cor shook his head in disbelief, the princess whispered quietly under her breath. Perhaps, after all this time, the right mind has finally walked through the wrong door. The laboratory of Aurelian Palace was a world of light and silence. Glass panels floated midair, filled with dancing equations, star charts, and color-coded energy waves. Every motion Jace made was reflected by glowing trails that lingered in the air before fading. It was beautiful and terrifying. He stood there in his gray coveralls, surrounded by centuries of alien science. A single wrong touch could probably delete something more valuable than his entire planet. He rubbed his neck, nervous laughter escaping. No pressure, he whispered to himself. The hologram of the Maw swirled before him, an endless dark storm in the middle of space. Lightning arcs of purple energy pulsed across its surface, forming fleeting patterns. Every data file he opened described it the same way. Unpredictable, chaotic, lethal. For hundreds of years, ships had tried to cross it. None succeeded twice. Jace squinted at the readings. Maybe the problem isn't the Maw, he muttered. Maybe it's how you're trying to talk to it. He didn't realize he'd spoken aloud until a soft voice answered behind him. Interesting theory. He turned sharply. Princess Nyra stood in the doorway, her royal robes replaced by a simple white jumpsuit. Without her crown, she looked less like a ruler and more like someone searching for something she couldn't name. I didn't expect you to come, Jace said. I figured you'd already written me off. Her lips curved slightly. You're the first to even look at the data differently. That's worth watching. He gestured at the display. Every prince before me tried to force it to make sense. But maybe that's the mistake. Physics on Earth taught us that sometimes chaos isn't random. It's just a pattern too complex to see. Nyra stepped closer, the lights reflecting silver across her eyes. So, you think it has a pattern? Not a stable one, Jace said. More like a rhythm. Look here. He zoomed in, highlighting a pulsing section of the Maw. Every few seconds, there's a repetition. Not exact, but close. Like breathing. Nyra watched in silence, her expression unreadable. You're saying the Maw is alive? He shrugged. Alive, no. Responsive, maybe. Like a system waiting for input. If the ships entering it use energy signatures that conflict with that rhythm, the Maw reacts unpredictably. Nyra tilted her head. So what if someone spoke its language? Jace smiled faintly. Then maybe the Maw would stop screaming. The princess studied him closely. You see what my scholars do not. He laughed. No, I just don't have a reputation to protect. It's easier to think when no one expects you to be right. For the first time, Nyra actually laughed, a quiet, melodic sound that echoed softly through the lab. It startled Jace more than the holograms did. Very well, she said. You will have full access to the palace archives. Every flight log, every transmission ever recorded near the Maw. Jace blinked. All of it. For a janitor. Nyra's expression turned firm. For the first person who might understand it. Behind her, Advisor Kor appeared at the door, clearly irritated. Your Highness, this is highly irregular. Then it suits me perfectly, she interrupted. Give him a workspace and clearance. Now. Kor bowed stiffly and left, muttering under his breath. Jace turned back to the glowing model, his mind already racing. He didn't understand everything. Half the alien notation was beyond him, but he felt a strange connection to it. Something about the Maw's pulse reminded him of frequencies he'd studied back on Earth. Sound. Light. Heartbeats. Hours passed. He stopped feeling hungry. He barely noticed time. He adjusted, tested, and retested, searching for the pattern that would make sense of the madness. Once, he thought he saw the hologram blink, as if it noticed him. The palace AI registered no anomaly, but Jace swore the rhythm shifted when he touched the interface. When Nyra returned late in the night, she found him surrounded by floating diagrams. He was muttering, half talking to himself, half to the data. It's not random. It's reacting. Every ship's drive core hums differently. The Maw listens. Nyra stepped closer, her voice low. And what does it say? Jace didn't look up. That everyone so far has been talking in the wrong language. The princess smiled faintly. Then perhaps it's time someone from another world started the conversation. Outside, the twin moons rose high above Aurelian, bathing the palace in pale light. And deep within the holographic storm, for a fraction of a second, the Maw pulsed. Once, in perfect rhythm with a human heartbeat. By dawn, the lab looked like a storm had passed through it. Holograms flickered midair. Charts floated, twisting gently like ghostly scrolls. Jace Rourke hadn't slept or noticed. His eyes were red, his hair a mess, but his mind was on fire. He'd spent the night chasing a question that wouldn't let him go. What if the Maw wasn't a thing to travel through, but but something that was trying to communicate. Every scientist before him had tried to conquer it. Every prince had treated it like a weapon to tame. Jace treated it like a conversation that nobody had ever stopped to listen to. He leaned closer to the display. The massive black swirl pulsed slowly, the outer edges rippling like breath. He whispered under his breath, "Come on, talk to me." The lab responded with silence. Then, just for an instant, one of the holographic readings blinked, the frequency lines dancing in time with his voice. He frowned. "Wait a second." He repeated his words softly, almost experimentally. "Talk to me." The line shimmered again. Jay stepped back, his pulse racing. "You did hear that, didn't you?" The door slid open. Princess Nyra entered, still in her plain flight suit from the night before, her silver eyes bright with curiosity. "Still awake?" she asked. Jace pointed at the display. "It reacts to sound frequencies, but not just random noise. It reacts to tone. Maybe emotion, too." Nyra raised an eyebrow. "Emotion? Are you suggesting the maw feels?" He shook his head. "Not emotion like ours, but maybe resonance. Like how a note on a violin can make another string vibrate without touching it." She studied the readings, stepping closer. "Then the maw is a living resonance field." "Exactly," Jace said, excitement flashing in his eyes. "Every ship that's ever entered it, they go in shouting. Massive engine power, heavy pulses, aggressive propulsion. It's like knocking on someone's door with a hammer. Of course it reacts badly." Nyra gave a small, incredulous laugh. "And what do you suggest?" "Whisper to it." "Maybe," he said simply. The room fell silent for a moment. The princess turned to look at him, the human who wasn't afraid to sound ridiculous. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't thinking about status or law or power. He just wanted to understand. "Your mind," she said quietly, "does not move like theirs." "Because I'm not trying to prove I'm clever," Jace said. "I just want to know why it matters." Nyra tilted her head, intrigued. "And why does it matter to you?" He looked up at the glowing spiral of energy. "Because if we can learn to understand something that big and strange instead of destroying it, maybe we deserve to be out here." Nyra didn't answer right away. She only watched him, the soft light of the holograms painting patterns across her face. For the first time, the human didn't seem out of place among her scholars. He looked exactly like what her world had forgotten. Curiosity in its purest form. A tone chimed from the main console. Advisor Cor Velis appeared in the doorway, his expression sour. "Your Highness," he said stiffly, "the council requests a report. The human has been given more than enough time to fail." Nyra didn't turn around. "Has he?" Cor frowned. "Your Highness, this is a waste of palace resources." Jace interrupted, his voice steady. "Give me 2 hours." Cor turned sharply. "You do not demand time from royalty." But Nyra lifted a hand. "He asks, not demands." 2 hours, granted. Cor's jaw tightened, but he bowed and left without another word. Jace turned back to the console. "All right," he said, hands flying across the controls. "If I'm right, the maw responds to harmonic input. I can simulate a gentle engine pulse, not force thrust, just rhythm. Like a heartbeat." He adjusted frequencies, lowering the amplitude, reshaping the power curve. The holographic storm began to move differently, no longer violent, but aware. Nyra leaned in, mesmerized. "It's synchronizing," she whispered. Jace smiled faintly. "Yeah, it's listening." Then, a ripple. The hologram flashed, and for one terrifying second, the system overloaded. Panels flickered. Lights dimmed. The entire lab went silent except for one sound. A soft, rhythmic hum echoing from the speakers. Like a distant, cosmic heartbeat. Jace's hands hovered over the controls. His throat went dry. "Nyra," he said slowly. "I think it just answered." The princess's voice was barely a whisper. Then, "Jace Rourkeverth, you may have just spoken to the stars." Outside, the twin suns rose higher, spilling gold across the horizon. But inside that quiet lab, humanity had just knocked on the door of the universe. And the universe had whispered back. The next morning, the palace was in uproar. Word had spread that the human janitor had made the maw react, something no royal scholar had done in centuries. Every corridor whispered his name. Every noble sneered it. But in the topmost observatory, Princess Nyra wasn't listening to politics. She was watching Jace. He stood surrounded by streams of light, running simultaneous calculations with alien tools and a half-broken tablet from Earth. He looked exhausted, but alive in a way that no prince ever had. Naira finally spoke. You spoke to it, didn't you? Jace hesitated. Not sure I'd call it talking. More like knocking politely and realizing the door blinked. Her silver eyes softened with amusement. A poetic description for a scientist. He grinned faintly. Poetic is what you say when you can't explain the math yet. A holographic pulse rippled across the lab table. The image of the maw was calmer than before, the chaos condensed into spiraling bands of light. Jace pointed. Look at this. When I send a low-frequency harmonic that matched the anomaly's natural rhythm, its energy output dropped by 12%. It stabilized. Naira's jaw tightened. So it can be calmed. Maybe. But that's not the strange part. He tapped a floating display. It remembered me. She frowned. Remembered? When I repeated the signal an hour later, it adjusted instantly, like it recognized the tone. The same frequency doesn't work twice. Naira stepped closer, her voice low. A living resonance field that learns. Before she could finish, the main console flared crimson. The palace AI chimed. Emergency communication from the outpost near the maw. Corvellis stormed in seconds later, cloak whipping behind him. Your Highness, a fleet has appeared within the anomaly, 50 ships. They bypassed our early detection systems. They're heading straight for Aurelian. Jace's blood ran cold. 50? That's not a mistake. Someone's using the maw. Naira's voice was steady, but her eyes were sharp. The Varkal Dominion. Kor nodded grimly. Our long-range scans confirm it. They must have learned how to control the resonance. If they reach orbit. They won't, Naira interrupted. She turned to Jace. You said the maw responds to harmonic input. Could it be disrupted? Jace blinked. You mean jam their signal? Maybe. If we can send an opposite frequency, it could confuse their navigation. Like noise-canceling headphones, but on a cosmic scale. Kor scoffed. Preposterous. You'd destroy half our systems. Naira ignored him. Can you build it? Jace rubbed his temples. I can try, but I'd need direct data from the Varkal ships to know their resonance signature. Her tone was instant and commanding. Then we get close enough to read it. Kor paled. You can't be serious. The Radiant Lancer is a royal vessel, not a warship. Then it will be the first of its kind, Naira said coldly. She turned back to Jace. You'll join me. Bring everything you need. You have 4 hours. Jace stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. You want me on the ship? I'm not military. I barely know how to fly a drone. Naira smiled faintly, the kind that didn't invite argument. You're not here to fight, Jace roared. You're here to think. The soldiers can fire weapons. Only you can make the universe listen. Outside, the palace alarms began to wail. The suns dimmed as defense shields activated. Across the horizon, the sky shimmered with the movement of the approaching Varkal armada. Jace looked at the hologram of the maw, now pulsing steadily like a living heart, and whispered, What are you really? The hologram flickered, and for the briefest moment, the swirling mass aligned into a shape that looked eerily human. A reflection, a reply. Then it vanished. Naira's voice broke the silence. Prepare the Radiant Lancer. The human and I will depart immediately. Kor's face was pale with disbelief. You're trusting him with your life? I'm trusting him with our world, she said simply. As the doors sealed behind them, the hallways of the Crystal Palace filled with light and motion. Soldiers ran, engineers shouted coordinates, and the royal banners of Aurelian unfurled like streams of fire. For the first time in his life, Jace Rourke was not sweeping floors or fixing lights. He was about to fly into the heart of a living storm and teach it a new song. The Radiant Lancer soared through the black sea of space, its hull glowing with soft gold energy as it cut across the void. Inside, every corridor hummed with urgency. Engineers whispered in clipped tones, screens flickered with alien runes, and soldiers checked weapons they hoped they wouldn't need. At the center of the ship, Jace Rourke stood frozen before the largest window he had ever seen. Beyond it, the maw filled the stars, an endless whirlpool of light and darkness. It wasn't just a storm, it was alive. Energy arcs spiraled inward like veins of lightning through water. The more he stared, the more it seemed to breathe. Princess Naira entered the control deck, dressed not in royal robes, but in a sleek commander's suit. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were bright with determination. Radiant Lancer approaching the maw's outer field, reported the pilot. Naira nodded. Engage cloaking. The view outside shimmered, and the ship's golden hue faded into transparency. Jace watched in awe. On Earth, stealth meant radar and shadows. Here, they bent light itself. Are you afraid? Naira asked softly. He turned to her. Terrified. Good. Fear means you still value life. Her words weren't comforting, but somehow, they steadied him. She gestured to the console beside him. Show me your plan. Jace pulled up a series of holographic graphs. The Varkal ships use harmonic resonance to navigate through the maw, frequencies that align with its natural energy pulses. If I can measure their specific tone, I can create a counterharmonic, something that disrupts the rhythm just enough to confuse their system. Naira studied the diagram. Like dissonance in a song. Exactly. If I'm right, their fleet won't be able to stabilize inside the field. They'll be scattered or forced to retreat. And if you're wrong, he swallowed. Then we'll be the first ones scattered. Silence hung between them. Then Naira smiled faintly. Let's hope your rhythm is better than your broom technique. Jace blinked. You saw me cleaning? I see everything that happens in my palace, she said, a glint of humor in her voice. Now focus. We have enemies to confuse. The Varkal fleet came into view. Enormous ships shaped like dark blades, gliding in precise formation. Each one shimmered faintly with blue resonance. Their movements were unnaturally smooth, almost synchronized with the maw's pulse. They've mastered the song, Jace whispered. They're in tune with it. Naira stepped closer to the viewport. Then we'll play louder. The control deck came alive. Jace's fingers flew across the console, setting frequency ranges, calculating feedback loops, and linking the ship's energy cores to the emitter array. He could feel sweat forming on his palms, his heartbeat syncing with the low thrum of the engines. Naira gave the order. All power to resonance emitters. The lights dimmed. The ship's hum deepened into a low vibration that rattled the floor. Jace adjusted the sliders. Almost there. 3, 2, 1, activate. A ripple of golden light burst from the radiant lancer, invisible to the eye, but blazing across every scanner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nearest Varkal ship lurched off course. Another spun sideways, colliding with its ally. Naira's crew cheered. It's working, someone shouted. But Jace's eyes stayed fixed on the readings. No, not fully. They're adapting. Their systems are learning my pattern. On the radar, the Varkal fleet began to stabilize again. Their formation reformed, slower but deadly precise. They're correcting in real time, Jace said. They're countering our counter. Then what now? Naira demanded. He hesitated, and then looked toward the glowing pendant around her neck. The royal memory crystal. The living repository of Aurelian's history. What if, he said slowly, we use that? Naira touched it instinctively. The crystal. It's a living data core, right? Energy mixed with consciousness. I can integrate its resonance into the pattern, feed it emotion instead of code. It might reach deeper than their machines can follow. Corvellus's voice crackled over the comms from the lower deck. That crystal is sacred, Your Highness. It's forbidden to link it to ship systems. Naira met Jace's gaze, unflinching. Sacred or not, it was created to protect our world. She unclasped the pendant and placed it into his trembling hands. The crystal pulsed faintly, warm and alive, as if aware of what was coming. Do it, she said. Jace hesitated for a heartbeat, then locked it into the core interface. The Radiant Lancer's entire hull lit up with cascading light. The ship sang, not in mechanical hums, but in music, a deep, haunting harmony that filled the void. Naira whispered, beautiful. Jace smiled weakly. Let's just hope the maw thinks so too. Outside, the stars themselves seemed to tremble as human instinct met royal legacy, and the storm listened. The Radiant Lancer trembled as the memory crystal fused with the ship's core. Golden light pulsed down every corridor, flickering through walls and across control panels. The hum deepened, rising into a sound that wasn't just heard. It was felt, vibrating in the bones of everyone aboard. Core integrity stable, called the pilot. But power output is, off the charts. Jace Rourke didn't look up from the console. Good. Let's hope the charts are wrong anyway. He worked quickly, reprogramming the harmonic emitter to merge human signal logic with Aurelian's living energy patterns. It wasn't supposed to work. The codes weren't compatible. But when had impossibility ever stopped him? Naira stood beside him, steady as the stars. Are we inside the Maw's field yet? Crossing the threshold now, said the navigator. Outside the window, the universe changed. Colors twisted into impossible shades. Stars stretched into ribbons of light that curved back upon themselves. It was like flying through the reflection of a dream. Jace felt his pulse sink with the rhythm thrumming through the deck. It's alive, he whispered. It's actually alive. The Maw wasn't a storm or a wormhole. It was a consciousness, a massive, pulsing resonance that moved like thought made of lightning. Contact, shouted the tactical officer. The Varkle fleet just entered the inner orbit. 51 ships, forming combat wedge formation. Naira straightened, her voice calm but strong. Ready the resonance field. Jace, begin when I give the mark. He nodded, eyes locked on the swirling data streams. The Varkle vessels glowed with harsh blue energy, their frequencies sharp and cold. Predatory. Jace adjusted the counterwave. Naira stepped closer, her hand brushing against the console beside his. Remember, they use control. We use connection. He glanced up at her. You mean empathy? She smiled faintly. Call it what you will. It's what they lack. Her words echoed in his head as the radiant lancer dove deeper into the Maw's heart. Alarms flared. The hull vibrated. Time seemed to warp, seconds stretched and folded. But Jace kept his focus on the rhythm. Target frequency locked, said a technician. On your mark, Your Highness. Naira took a breath, her hand hovering over the command pad. Now. Jace hit the switch. The radiant lancer sang. A wave of golden resonance burst outward, colliding with the Varkle signals. Space itself seemed to ripple like water. The enemy formation faltered, ships drifting out of sync. They're scattering, cried the pilot. But then, one of the massive dreadnoughts surged forward, adapting faster than the rest. They're recalibrating, Jace said. They're learning too. A thunderous blast struck the ship's shields. The deck lurched violently. Sparks flew. Shields at 60%. Jace grabbed the console, struggling to keep balance. We need to amplify the signal, but it'll overload the core. Naira looked at the crystal interface. It pulsed brighter with each wave, as if waiting. Then we give it what it's asking for, she said. She placed her hand on the crystal cradle. Light poured from it, wrapping around her arm in streams of gold. Your Highness, the crew protested. Jace reached out. Naira, stop. You'll burn yourself out. Her voice was calm. You said it needed emotion. Then let it have mine. For a moment, the entire ship fell silent. Then Jace stepped forward and placed his hand beside hers on the crystal. He felt her heartbeat through the energy, steady, powerful, fearless. Their minds brushed. He saw fragments of her world, her childhood in the palace, her endless lessons, her loneliness among stars. And she saw him. Earth's gray skies, his failed experiments, the quiet pain of being unseen. The crystal pulsed, merging both frequencies, human logic and Aurelian willpower, into one perfect chord. Outside, the Maw reacted. Its dark tendrils flared into golden light, curling toward the Varkle ships. The storm answered. One by one, enemy vessels began to drift, caught in invisible tides. Their engines screamed against the pull, but the Maw was done listening to them. The ships twisted and folded into blinding arcs, vanishing into the light. The bridge erupted with cheers, but Jace barely heard them. The crystal burned white-hot under his hand. His vision blurred. Naira's voice echoed faintly beside him. Hold, it's almost done. The final Varkle flagship shattered into the storm, swallowed whole. Then everything went quiet. The radiant lancer hung suspended in glowing mist, the Maw's violent energy fading into calm spirals. The crew gasped in disbelief. Naira collapsed, her hands slipping from the console. Jace caught her just before she hit the floor. Her pulse was faint, but steady. Naira, he whispered, shaking her gently. Hey, stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly gold. Did we win? Jace smiled weakly. You tell me, Commander. Outside the window, the Maw pulsed once, slow, peaceful, before falling quiet. The stars shone again. And somewhere deep within the anomaly, a new harmonic echoed back. Not in chaos, but in harmony, as if the universe itself had whispered, "Thank you." 3 days later, the skies above Aurelian were finally calm. The Maw had gone silent, its once chaotic pulse now a steady rhythm, faintly golden in the night sky. It was no longer feared. It was watched, studied, even admired. In the great hall of ascension, thousands gathered beneath shimmering crystal arches. Banners of silver and gold hung from the ceiling, swaying gently in the warm air. The air smelled of ozone and celebration. And at the center stood Jace Rourke, the man who had once mopped these very floors. He tugged uncomfortably at the ceremonial jacket that glittered with alien symbols. It felt too heavy, too formal, too not him. Advisor Cor Velis approached, his usually stern expression softer than Jace had ever seen. "Never thought I'd see the day," Cor said quietly. A human standing before the council as Aurelian's savior. Jace gave a small, crooked smile. "I didn't either. I was just trying not to get fired." A faint laugh escaped Cor. "Then may all our employees be as troublesome as you." The hall quieted as Princess Naira Solen entered. The crowd rose instantly. She walked with calm authority, her silver eyes glowing faintly with light that hadn't been there before. Ever since she and Jace had touched the crystal together, something within her had changed, something deeper than anyone could explain. When she reached the center dais, her gaze found him. "Jace Rourke of Earth," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "You came to this world as a laborer. You were not born of royal blood, nor trained in our science. Yet when all others failed, you looked at the impossible, and you listened." The hall remained silent, hanging on every word. "You did not conquer the maw," she continued. "You understood it. You treated it as something to be heard, not controlled. That is what saved our people. That is what true strength means." The chief elder rose slowly. "By the laws of the Celestial Accord, any who pass the royal test may stand as consort to the crown. Do you, Princess Naira, confirm your choice?" "I do." The words rippled through the crowd like thunder. All eyes turned to Jace. His throat felt dry. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice small against the vast silence. Naira smiled gently. "Then say yes." He blinked, then laughed softly. "I guess that's the easiest test you've given me yet." When he spoke again, his voice was firm. "I accept." The hall erupted in applause. Light cascaded down from the ceiling in radiant waves. But in the middle of the noise, Naira leaned close and whispered, "This isn't an ending, Jace. It's the beginning of something neither of our worlds has seen." Later that night, under the open sky, Jace stood on the palace balcony beside her. Below them, the city of Solinar shimmered like liquid glass, alive with celebration. Children released lanterns into the sky, tiny lights floating toward the stars. Naira rested her hand against the railing. "Do you ever miss your home?" Jace smiled faintly. "Every day? But maybe this is home now too." She looked at him curiously. "You humans have a strange way of belonging everywhere and nowhere." He shrugged. "Maybe that's our secret. We adapt. We listen. We figure things out as we go." Naira nodded slowly. "That's what I admire most about your kind. You don't stop trying, even when the universe tells you it's impossible." He looked at her, the soft glow of the moons reflecting in her eyes. "And what about you?" "I was raised to rule," she said quietly. "But you taught me something I never expected. That ruling is not control. It's connection." Jace chuckled. "Guess we both learned something from a giant space storm." "From the maw," she corrected with a smile. "You gave it a new name, the Heart of Stars. The people have already started using it." He looked up at the faint golden swirl far above. "Good. It deserves a name that means life, not fear." They stood in silence for a while, watching the sky. Then Jace said softly, "You know, on Earth we have a saying, the right person often walks through the wrong door." Naira smiled. "And you walked through mine." He laughed, still not sure if that was fate or bad scheduling. She turned toward him, her expression gentle, eyes bright with something warmer than starlight. Maybe both. As the night deepened, a faint hum drifted through the sky, the same rhythmic pulse the maw once carried in anger, now peaceful and soft. Jace listened, recognizing the tone instantly. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Naira nodded. "Yes, it's the maw's new song." He smiled slowly. "No, it's our song." Above the shining city, two worlds, one of logic, one of wonder, finally shared the same rhythm. And for the first time in the history of the stars, the universe itself seemed to hum along.